Alright boys, welcome back to another video. Thunder Alley here. Today we're going to be reacting to the Chargers Week 1 win over the Las Vegas Raiders. Starting off with Jim Harbaugh. Of course, he came over in the offseason to be our head coach. He's one of the most winningest coaches in NFL history, and he showed us exactly why. The first game, the Chargers, all of a sudden, they're playing physical up front. They're running the ball. They're getting after Minshew, 4 sacks, 6 hits. There was a lot of talks about how the Chargers, they don't have any receivers. How exactly is this offense going to be able to get it done? Of course, signing Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. There was a lot of concerns about the Chargers, but I think all of those were at least temporarily put to rest because the Chargers ran the ball incredibly well. And it's not like they were facing off against a Raiders defense that is not good. I mean, the Raiders have one of the best defenses in football, especially up front. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, John Jenkins. I mean, and Tyree Wilson, like, this is a really good Raiders front, and the Chargers just dominated it. Not to say that the Chargers were winning up front all game, because there was a lot of bad in this game. The first half, I didn't think the offensive line looked good at all, but just to be resilient, to not go away from running the ball, and it paid off in a massive way. I mean, the Chargers, previously, they would have just abandoned the run game and put the ball into Herbert's hands for 40 or more plays. But they didn't. They stayed with it, and it led to 27 carries for 176 yards. J.K. Dobbins goes 10 for 135 and a touchdown. I mean, that's literally the most yards per carry in a season opener. I mean, Chargers history, I mean, nobody else in their debut had done that. Dobbins looks like he is going to run away with the running back one. I do think Gus Edwards should be our short yardage, goal line type of situation running back. I still think Gus should get work. Just because he had a bad game in this one doesn't mean they should just go away from him. But Dobbins looked explosive. This looked like the J.K. Dobbins that we were waiting for in Baltimore. And the Chargers, they got a special player. I think he's going to do big things for them this year. In terms of the receivers, I mean, Ladd McConkey, 5 for 39 a touchdown. He juked multiple defenders late in this game. Looks like he's going to be a future star. He's a guy that I was high on coming into the draft before he was a Charger. I thought he should have been a first-round pick, and I mean, he is going to be a big-time weapon for this team. You know, Quentin Johnson had 3 catches for 38 yards. Josh Palmer was one of the most disappointing players in this game. Got ejected. 2 for 15. Saw 4 targets. 2 of them were thrown absolutely behind Tim Herbert. Did that intentionally. Just don't want to get hit. You don't want to throw your receiver and do a big hit. The receivers just, like, they weren't impressive, but that's actually really big for the Chargers, the fact that the receivers didn't get a lot of work and they still won. Like, Herbert had 144 yards in the air and a touchdown, 17 of 26. Herbert had never completed just 17 passes and won a game and thrown for this few yards. Like, it just never happened in his 4-year career. Herbert's been in the league for, so, like, it just hasn't happened for Justin Herbert. And this is just wild for the team because it's showing that they're just a completely transformed culture and their identity is a lot different. And I'm super excited about it. There's a lot to be faithful about for the Chargers. To win week 1 against a divisional rival, to win the way that you wanted to, of just running the football, forcing turnovers. And that brings me to my next point, and that's, Gardner Minshew threw an interception to a defensive lineman late in this. We also saw Minshew lose a fumble. We saw Zamir White lose a fumble. Joey Bosa was able to chase him down and dive and have sort of peanut punch. And Bosa, you could argue he was the best player on the field. I mean, he was just wreaking havoc. He tied for the team lead in tackles. He had that sack, of course. He had that strip fumble. Him and Khalil Mack, if healthy, I think the Chargers are going to be able to compete with anyone in the AFC. The AFC is definitely the tougher conference. There's a lot of talent, a lot of good football teams. But just seeing Bosa healthy makes me feel very good about this team. I mean, he is unbelievably good. And a lot of guys, of course, ended up restructuring their contracts. Like, Mack was coming off of a career year and restructured his contract because everyone just wants to win. They wanted to get talent, and I love what I'm seeing out of the Chargers. The Raiders, there was a lot of bad to talk about them. I know this is a Chargers channel, and you guys probably don't really care about the Raiders, and rightfully so. But in terms of the Raiders, I mean, Minshew, that's exactly why you can't have a Band-Aid at quarterback. I mean, 25, 33, 257 is not bad by any means. But I didn't think Minshew looked that great. And a lot of it was he took 4 sacks, 6 quarterback hits. The Chargers front dominated, especially in the second half. But man, I mean, the Raiders, they couldn't run the ball. Minshew was struggling. I mean, 22 for 71. You could argue this was the best run defensive performance in the last 24 years for the Chargers. I think that legitimately would be probably accurate. Like, the Chargers run defense was so good, and it starts with the interior because you've got guys like Morgan Fox, Tito Agbania, Puna Ford. Joey Bosa was unbelievably good against the run. Khalil Mack helped as well. Henley had a lot of tackles. Everyone played their part, and I love what I saw. This was a very, very encouraging game for the Chargers. They weren't perfect, right? There's a lot to clean up. There's a lot of work to do. But for this to be the first game and a final way to win, I mean, things are only trending upwards for the Chargers. And I just love how the team went out there and they got Jim Harbaugh. I love the moves that we made in free agency, like going out and getting J.K. Dobbins, Christian Fulton, Denzel Perriman, Gus Edwards, Puna Ford, Hayden Hurst. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I did suck losing Keenan Allen, man. I really liked him. And, of course, releasing Mike Williams definitely hurt. He couldn't stay healthy. But overall, this is a team that is, and not to mention Corey Linsley, like, losing Corey Linsley, one of the best center, maybe the best center in football, really, really hurt. But I just think that things are trending in the right direction for the Chargers. And there's still 16 games. There's a lot of football ahead of us, but I was encouraged by this game, and I think it's going to be a good season. I'm not saying we're going to be able to compete with Kansas City for the AFC West, but in terms of the wild card, that's my goal. If we can make that, I'd be very pleased because the Chargers have only made the playoffs once with Justin Herbert. I mean, you don't need to remind me that game where they could have just tied and made it, and then like it's just so much disaster. But in terms of the Chargers, I mean, take a look at who the next game is against in week 2, and that's going to be the Carolina Panthers. I haven't even looked at the Chargers schedule, and it's September 9th. I mean, that's just pretty ridiculous, but looking at it now at Carolina, that's going to be a very good game for the Chargers because the Panthers, they're the worst team in the NFL. I mean, they just gave up like 40, I think it was 46 points to the New Orleans Saints, so the Chargers should be able to get back on track with their passing game. I mean, they're going to run the ball down their throats, but I do expect the receivers to have a very, very good game after a quiet one against the Raiders. At Pittsburgh in week 3, at home against Kansas City. Early bye week in week 5 is actually insane, bro. It seems that's just way, way too early, but oh well, right? Week 6 at Denver, week 7 at Arizona, week 8 versus New Orleans, week 9 at Cleveland, week 10 versus Tennessee, week 11 versus Cincinnati. So right off the rip, taking on the AFC North Division, maybe the best division in football. So that is not good. Week 12 versus Baltimore. At least these are home games against the Bengals and the Ravens. Week 13 at Atlanta, week 14 at Kansas City. You got to realize that the Chargers have to play the Chiefs twice a year. So the fact they're getting that and then also the AFC North is so tough. But week 15 is versus Tampa Bay. Week 16 versus Denver. Week 17 at New England and week 18 at Las Vegas. I mean, I don't think this schedule is the craziest in the world. I mean, there's a lot of softer games. Just some of the tough teams kind of makes it stand out, like Bengals, Ravens, and Kansas City. But like the Bengals look terrible in week 1, so the Bengals, for all we know, could have a bad year. But I don't really think they will. But yeah, outside of that, guys, it's your boy Thunder Alley. I'm signing out, man. Peace.